Welcome back to the weekly YouTube channel. Happy holidays to everybody. I know it's been a while since I kind of posted. I've been trying to be more consistent, but just lived through probably the worst storm in Buffalo history. Multiple casualties, and people I've known stuck at work, being like nurses and medical professionals and stuff like that. So, has been fun. I have luckily avoided most of the bad snow and like conditions. We just stayed inside the apartment. We're slowly going to start doing like Christmas stuff with our families now that the roads are kind of getting cleaned up and things like that. All the National Guard are here now to fix that up. So I didn't really have time to really sit down and work on stuff, or I didn't really feel the want to. I was kind of just stuck here with my significant other, and we were just hanging out. So I didn't really get to recording, but I have a lot planned for today and the upcoming days. With how my schedule is structured, I should be able to record a lot. But so our first one is going to be a new addition to our takes videos, where if you have anybody who hasn't seen these before, since I know I've been getting a lot of new viewers with the draft products I'm doing, I go through and I talk about just some takes I have mostly around the NFL draft or just the season itself or just football in general. And the way I structure it is I send takes into the Draft Network's Draft Dudes podcast, which they do in a Friday episode. Every Friday they will receive takes from their viewers and then respond to them. And this, I think, is a great way to bring up the points I want to bring up, as well as having someone else's point of view on them without having to work on getting a collab together and things like that. I get to send my takes in, listen to their reactions to it, then talk my point to it while also responding to their reactions. So I think that's my favorite way to format this, instead of just sitting down and start talking to you about my takes, have another person's input so I can work off that as well. So today we're just going to get back into that. I have two takes coming your way, one about Will Levis being QB1, and one about Jaxson Kirkland, the offensive guard for Washington. Let's get right into it, and check out the actual podcast, Draft Network podcast if you want. They're much bigger than I am, so they probably have already heard of it. If not, check them out, send some takes in, and maybe I'll start responding to some of the other viewers' takes.
Couple takes from the Weekly Huddle podcast. Take number one. The teams in need of a quarterback near the top of the 2023 draft already have a bridge stopgap option on the roster, which will lead to Will Levis being the first quarterback taken, since they will be allowed to sit him and develop his upside.
Texans. Are you going to put the Seahawks in this bucket? I mean, they're talking extension, but they don't have an extension. He's 32. It's kind of a weird one. Who's Carolina's bridge?
Nobody. They're all
Sam Darnold, baby. Sam Darnold.
No,
Bring
his
him back.
contract's up. Matt Corral's the one under contract. That ain't a bridge quarterback.
So I think we kind of, I mean, Davis Mills you have on a rookie contract, so like the Texans are locked in with somebody who has starting experience. I don't know that I agree with this.
Well, and I think that there's a very good chance that Will Levis is the first quarterback drafted, not because of the reason that he's putting together here. Right? Like he's saying that the reason Will Levis is going to be the first quarterback drafted is because the other teams have bridge quarterbacks in place. Right. I think that Will could potentially just have a team that likes him and he'll be the first quarterback off.
And that would be why he gets drafted first.
And real quick, before we get into the take, I forgot to do this when I started the video, but guess who's moving up in the world of recording stuff? Yeah. Break your mic in the middle of a recording session and then ask for one for Christmas, you get this fancy old doodad. I just installed this yesterday, so it's still a bit of work in progress, but yeah, I got a brand new mic and it looks professional as anyway. So yeah, let me talk about this take I put in. So my take in general was just that Will Levis was going to be QB1, and then the reasoning I gave during the take segment, which isn't the only reason I have, it's just one I wanted to add and see what their opinion was on it, was that Will Levis was going to be QB1 off the board, and that the reasoning I gave was because all the teams picking in the top 10 have a bridge / stopgap option already on the roster, or have, basically on the roster right now, and that Levis is a guy who needs a lot of project time to really get the most out of him. Even though he has the higher ceiling of the top 3, he's going to need the most time to reach that. That these teams that have these stopgap options are going to be able to take a chance on him because they have somebody already in play for them. So they disagreed. As you heard, I'm going to play the clip of them playing it at 2x speed, just so that way we can get through that. But they responded saying that they questioned it and said, probably not. And Joe Marino specifically said that Will Levis could be number one if someone falls in love with him, but not for the reason I said. Now, to be fully transparent, Will Levis is still my QB1 on my board right now. I like the upside he brings. Bryce Young is, I think, tied with him. So it's really, in my eyes, you can go between the two of those guys. then there's a little bit of drop off to CJ Stroud. So, still haven't got on to Anthony Richardson yet. I think I'm going to like him, but regardless, I think that my point still stands with the top 10, or first quarterback off the board, which is going to be like top 10, top 5 in this draft class. With the whole bridge thing, I think Will Levis should be QB1 regardless, just I think I have him graded the most, graded the best, even though he didn't have the best season of the quarterbacks because he didn't have the best surrounding talent. And, it's just going to be one of those things where you have to bet on his traits and not look at what he did in the final year of school because there was some different kind of situations when it comes to like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud versus what Will Levis was working with in Kentucky. So let's just go through the top 10 real quick because I don't think we don't have a quarterback draft in the top 10. Houston Texans, right? You got Davis Mills on a rookie contract. You have, I think, Jeff Driscoll, who they've been playing a lot more recently. Either of those guys. You have, I don't know if Driscoll's under contract after this year, but I know Mills is on a cheap rookie contract. He has starting experience over the past 2 years. You know what you have in him. You can at least get the first half of the season out of the way with Mills before turning over to Levis if your season's already lost at that point. So I think Houston has a bridge quarterback in play. Chicago wouldn't take him. Seattle from Denver. Now, they brought up the point, and I'll agree that they brought up the point that Geno is not underneath contract anymore. He's playing in a contract year, and it's up to them if they want to extend him or whatever. I don't know how much money they're going to get him for. I don't know if they're going to get on a cheap contract or what's going on, if he's going to have another prove-it deal. But if they can either get him on a one-year prove-it deal, or even then, Drew Lock is still under contract. Now, people might laugh at that, but Drew Lock could work in this system for Seattle. He was in contention to start at the beginning of the year, and obviously Geno has been the better quarterback and has really played well, so he won the starting job. But if Geno's gone because he wants too much money, you have Drew Lock starting for at least the first couple weeks while you coach up Will Levis. I think that's the case. I think Seattle's probably the least likely spot for them to go because I don't know if he fits that type of quarterback they want. But even then, I don't know. I'm not Pete Carroll or the front office there. I still think, though, that Drew Lock or even Geno Smith, if he comes back on another one-year prove-it deal, could be that guy for you, and you can draft then Will Levis and stock him behind them. So Seattle's the one I'll have a contention with. But Arizona, not going to take quarterback. Colts still have Matt Ryan, as well as having Sam Ehlinger. As much of a joke it is, he now has starting experience. Same with Nick Foles. They have options on the roster that they can go to if they want to develop Will Levis slowly. Atlanta has Desmond Ridder. I don't know if Desmond Ridder makes you not take Will Levis. I think I'd still take Will Levis, even though I was kind of a Desmond Ridder fan. Didn't have him in the first round, obviously, but I was higher on him than a lot of people who were, especially I was higher on a lot of these quarterbacks last year than a lot of people were. But Ridder could be your starter, or Mariota still could be your starter while Levis develops if you want to take him, or else you want to build up the defense, and they probably won't take any quarterback. Then you got Detroit at 7. I'm more inclined, I don't know, I'm probably going to do a mock draft soon. I'm probably going to watch Anthony Richardson and then do a mock draft for my next podcast episode. But I think Detroit could either go Levis here, because they have Goff, and he's been playing really well for them this year. But at the same time, he's not like the future. He's not someone who can reach, he doesn't have the highest of Levis. Oh, we have a cat interrupting our recording. Say hi, Mowgli. But, yeah, I don't think Goff is the future there, so they could look to develop somebody. If I was the Lions, which I'll probably do in my mock draft, is I'd probably draft someone at 7. And depending on how much I like Richardson, go with Richardson at 18, which is where they're currently at. But anyway, I think Detroit would probably be smart to go with a defensive player here, and then go with maybe like Richardson or something at 18. But if they really like Levis, and they wanted to go quarterback who had a development upside, I'd rather probably have Levis. I guarantee you Richardson's not going to be higher than Levis for me. So I'd probably go Levis here. They have that stopgap. Carolina was another team in contention with the dudes because they didn't have anybody under contract right now, but they're going to bring back P.J. Walker. There's no way they don't bring back P.J. Walker. And Sam Darnold has been playing well for them. They could bring him back as well. Those guys are both under contract. They're going to have first talking rights with them. Why wouldn't they bring them back? They're going to be on cheap contracts. They haven't played all that well overall. They've been playing decently, but nothing crazy. So they could bring them back, one or both of them back on pretty good value contracts, and then have Levis sit behind one or both of them. And this is a third stringer, so you can really pad him there. So I think Carolina, they really hammered home that Carolina point, but I think that might even be one of the more likely scenarios is that they bring back Walker and Darnold and then draft Levis to be their QB3. and then work his way up the depth chart throughout the offseason and then through the season itself, especially with the injury history and injury luck the Carolina Panthers have had at the quarterback position. So I could see that one, even though the guys really weren't too happy with that. The Raiders, there's been a lot of talk about Derek Carr moving. He's still under contract. I could see them keeping him for one more year and then developing Levis, then moving off of him if his contract isn't up at that point. I don't think it's up at that point, but I'm not sure. But regardless, they have him at least for another year. I think Carr would be a good stopgap for them while he could play himself into like a tradable piece. The Eagles ain't going to draft a quarterback, and that's our top 10. If you want to keep going, Houston at 11. We already talked about Houston, Seattle again. Tennessee at 13, New England at 14, Jets at 15. We get out, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Detroit. We're out of the quarterback selection area. So I think within that top 10, Levis makes sense for all of them because all of them do, I believe, have stopgap or bridge guys who are currently on the roster. Whether they're under contract to next year or not is not an issue because I think the guys who aren't could be easily brought back. Maybe not Geno, but like Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, those guys could be brought back really cheaply. And Seattle has Drew Lock on the roster if they really believe in him to be like a one-year starter because it depends on their outlook on the season for next year. If they really want to be super competitive, they probably make a bid for Geno, and at that point, they're not going to draft a quarterback. Or they roll Drew Lock and just say, hey, we're going to develop this kid and then probably get a better draft pick, and then 2 years down the road, we're going to be good. So that's my defense of that take. I still think Will Levis is QB1. This is just one of the reasons I saw that could have been interesting as to like sell somebody who wasn't on the Will Levis QB1 train as to why Will Levis could be the first quarterback off the board. And this is me defending what they thought was not the best argument for it.
The move to guard has helped accentuate Jaxson Kirkland's pros and limit his cons, allowing him to regain the early day 2 talk he was receiving back in 2021.
Hard pass.
Yeah, and I almost feel like what got me excited about Jaxson Kirkland was what he showed as a tackle early.
While acknowledging that he needed to develop.
Yeah. So he's going to be an interesting player. He's going to require one of those real, like, clear my mind, couple cups of coffee, pray, feel good about the eval.
Okay, and for my second and final take of the day, it was covering Jaxson Kirkland, the guard from Washington, formerly the left tackle, who back in like the 2020 offseason, heading into the 2021 season, was getting some first-round draft hype as a future left tackle consideration. There was a weird thing with his ankle injury where he committed to the NFL draft and uncommitted, so was suspended for that. Then he came back, and now he's playing left guard for the Washington Huskies, where my take was basically saying that I went back and rewatched him, which I am a UW fan, so I do a good job putting my bias aside. I've been a big fan of UW guys before, and a critic of other guys, like Kyler Gordon last year. I wasn't his biggest fan. Some guys had him in the first round. I was more critical on that. Well, regardless, I think that the point of my take was I went back and watched him again, and I thought that his move to guard, all the issues I had with him as a tackle, I think the move to guard hid the issues, or like at least reduced the issues I had, and all the things that we were praising him for as a tackle prospect, with all the traits and the athletic tools he had, I think is much better at the guard position than it was at the tackle position. I don't know if it's one way or the other, if it's because he looks better because his negatives are reduced, or if his pros are being accentuated, but I put it as just both just to see the reactions. And it was a pretty hard response. Kyle was way out, and Joe said he was torn, and they would have to go back through and do a hard review of it. So let me just read you a blurb from my little write-up on Kirkland I made. I wrote this on 11/17/22. This was after I got done, reviewing him as a guard, and this was about when I submitted these takes to begin with. It's been a little bit because they got passed over because of the Thanksgiving thing, and then I'm just now coming to this video. So let me just read you a bit of this excerpt here as to why I think the way I think about him as a guard prospect. As a guard, Kirkland's negatives have been covered up and is able to continue his strong play that made him a potential first-rounder heading into the 2020 season. In pass pro, Kirkland struggled with keeping his feet moving and dealing with speed when at tackle. Moving inside and playing in a tighter space allows for him to be a better athlete out of his stance and not worry about the threat of an aggressive upfield speed rush. There are still plays on occasion where he stops moving his feet and allows the defender to get around him, but it is much less regular on the interior. Kirkland has elite hand placement, consistency landing his punches, and keeping inside leverage versus straight-up rushers, and knowing when to switch his hands to their hips and ride them upfield when they try to beat him with speed. His stunt pass-offs are consistent, and the cases that they have created pressure was due to his accompanying tackle missing the assignment. Despite being a taller guard prospect, Kirkland has continued to play with good pad level and shown the ability to anchor down and limit the amount of ground he gives up to larger defenders. Run blocking is where Kirkland runs into his bigger issues as a prospect, and those problems are the same that have been a question mark since his initial draft buzz started. Despite having a good get-off out of his stance, great length for a guard, and playing with a competitive edge to his game that leads to some nasty pancakes, Kirkland struggles with being a powerful run blocker and will be limited in the schemes he will be effective in. Kirkland can move and has some good reps as a space blocker in the flat and at the second level. However, when he is asked to pull and kick a defensive end out, he struggles to get enough push to clear the lane, and as a down blocker, he isn't able to get much push on his own, and is only able to get positive drive with the help of double teams and chip blocks. If a team is going to invest in Kirkland, they will need to find a value in the high upside as a pass blocker and employ mostly zone concepts that will allow him to use his mobility to get smaller defenders and impose his size on them. So like I said, and I wrote it down here as well, his negatives when he was a tackle was he's like really technically sound, and I saw a lot of issues where not a lot, but I saw some reps where he was getting troubled with like speed rushers, especially against like Michigan and stuff with Ojabo and Hutchinson, but not just that. He was having issues with some speed rushers on the outside. He would underset them and let them get upfield, and then it'd really throw off his rhythm and his base and stuff like that, so he'd sacrifice his anchor as well when he was threatened with a good pass rusher on the outside. Moving into guard, he doesn't have to worry about those upfield explosive rushers as much anymore, and he's able to handle them when they do occur much more efficiently because there's less room for him to have to move. His biggest negative as a tackle was that he wasn't able to get a lot of good run blocking reps. He wasn't a power blocker. He struggled even to get push on like the smaller smaller defensive ends as a tackle, which you'd think would be bad when he went to guard, but really it's just been kind of consistent, where his run blocking is still the worst part of his game, but he has shown he's still good in space. He got that movement ability in space on run blocking. It's just more of like man up, one-on-one, take your guy out. But on the interior, there's a lot more opportunities for combo blocks up to the second level, either him going up to the second level or having his center help him combo up to the second level, or chip blocks from the running back if it's a QB draw or something like that. There's a lot of ways for him to get helped out in the guard position rather than where he was at with the tackle. So I do still believe that Kirkland carries over those positives I saw with him as a tackle that made me have him valued as like a high second at tackle position. And then the negatives I saw, I think, do get mitigated by him moving inside and having less room and more help to help with, speed rushers and power running. But anyway, those are my two takes from the Draft News podcast. This, I guess it wasn't this week, it was last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember when they recorded that. And it was been even further along back since I submitted those. But I have two more coming in. One is an actual football take. Actually, no, I think I changed it to both being an actual football take and draft takes for this upcoming Friday's episode. So maybe I'll get another one of these out within the same week. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in my responses to those responses to my take, response to the responses. And yeah, I'm glad to have a whole day of just recording and scouting and stuff. So you expected to have a lot more videos out soon. This one should go out like an hour after I get done recording it. I'm going to be doing a prospect review of a wide receiver from this class, and then I'm also going to be doing a podcast after I get to some Anthony Richardson tape, maybe even some Michael Mayer tape, and then doing that mock draft for my podcast. So keep in touch. Make sure to subscribe and turn the notification bell so you can catch up on those videos. You can find the podcast on all your normal streaming services, and other than that, I'll see you in the next video.